Hello and welcome to episode 125 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I'm Cam,
I'm Sahil.
and we are breaking off another quarter 125 episodes. It's the long week. We've decided to do something special. We'll get to that in a little bit. But how are you doing, Sahil, after our week off?
I'm doing great. It was weird to have a week off from the podcast. It's been a while since we've had an extended break. But things have been good. Good 4th of July. Sounds like you had a lot of fun in Colorado.
Yeah, no, I had a blast. Went all over the state, did a lot of hiking, looking at cool rocks and all sorts of things. Had a great time.
I love it. Yeah, I'm sure that was a great distraction from your epic loss to me last week. I'm really bummed that we didn't record last week, so we'd be able to talk about it more in depth. But we will talk about it in a little bit, along with some of the other matchups from last week. But before that, or also too, before we get into all of that, happy belated 25th birthday. Your 25th birthday was the 5th, right? So
Yeah, I think that's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that Wednesday. Okay. Yeah, happy belated 25th birthday as we record episode 125. And we have another segment along that theme later in the episode. So gonna be fun.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, before we do any of that, we have some trades to talk about here,
We have a lot of
including
things
some
to talk
big
about.
ones. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the last one we talked about, did we talk about Eric Swanson for Bo Naylor?
No, we did not. That's the one we have to start with.
Okay, I don't really have any thoughts on that one. Do you? I like Bo Naylor.
I think Bo Naylor's interesting. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be like a stud, like top five dynasty catcher or something, but I think he could be, fall in that top 10 range. I think it's a good get for EVO to, kind of compete with Alejandro Kirk to be their catcher of the future. I know Kirk's had a bit of a down year. As for Eric Swanson, sell high for EVO. They don't need a holds guy for where they're at right now. They're not going to miss him, but we've talked about Yuki's team. If he's really committed to building out kind of a bullpen strategy to win, him needing some better relievers and in particular holds guys. He has some solid saves options, but not really holds options. And this certainly adds to that. Swanson's been one of the best holds guys in the league this year. So I think it makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, I agree, and especially with Yuki having so many catchers, he can afford to give up on Naylor.
Exactly.
All right, so that one is out of the way already very quickly. Um, Up next, let's see. You traded me Charlie Morton.
Yeah, Charlie Morton and my 2028 third to you for Ruth Fix 2024 second and it's 2027 third. Or your 2027 third. I'll be honest. I thought I was gonna have to just like dump Morton for basically nothing. So I was pleasantly surprised I was able to get what I think is gonna be a lottery second for him. Um Morton's had an up and down year. The whip is high, but the ERA is solid. He's just been incredibly frustrating to roster. And ultimately, like, I'm getting a little healthier. Julio Urias is back. Kyle Brad is just someone I really finally want to commit to. Tanner Bibby is now on my roster full time, and Max Free just started a rehab assignment. So Morton's days were starting to get numbered. Perhaps I could have kept him another week or two just until Fried officially came back. I guess it is a little bit of a gamble, but I don't know if this price would have been there then. Because you're suffering from some starting pitcher injuries. So why don't you talk about this from your perspective?
Yeah, so this was a deal. I was just devastated with starting pitchers. There was one point I had only four healthy starting pitchers, and one of them was Paul Blackburn. So I kind of got desperate. I put out a call. You said Charlie Morton could be had. I was like, cool, let's do it. I want to get this deal done as soon as possible. It took us 8 minutes between me saying I wanted a pitcher and you giving me Morton. I think I overpaid a little bit because I'm desperate. But I also like Morton's stuff a lot. He still has great movement on his on his pitches. He's still getting a ton of swings and misses, even at what, 36, 37. I think I'm very happy to have him in my rotation until the end of the year. Not a big splash or anything like that, but I'm happy with him. And I said this to you that, yeah, sure, I could probably, uh, uh, wait a week or two, write up my matchup with Daniel and Matt, and then reevaluate after that matchup when I face the team that'll have more starting pitchers. But I kind of figured, one, well, I didn't think of that, and two, you lost to them. I don't want to take any chances either.
Yeah, also too with, kind of the lack of starting pitchers in the market. I figured someone like that could have gone pretty quickly if, you hadn't jumped on him. So, another team might have already gotten him by the time you really wanted him. So, I don't think it was an egregious overpay. I think you and I both agreed that he was worth a second round pick. I'm guessing you would have preferred to give up more of a non-lottery team second round pick, whereas I was pretty happy to get a second round pick of a team who I think might be a lottery team that also still has a chance to sneak into the playoffs. So I don't think the value is super far off, but I do get your concern there.
Yeah, and I think he's obviously not going to be a long-term fit on my team, but I've got a lot of second rounders, and I'm happy with the deal. Hopefully I can get some good starts from him down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump up to the next trade here. This was an interesting one for those of you who love prospects. Alex traded AJ Smith-Shawver to Moneyball for Jonathan Aranda. I know Smith-Shawver is someone that Alex has been trying to trade for a while. I mean, he's an interesting case because he's only 20. He debuted really quick. Like, I don't think he was the best when he came up. I still think there's a lot of potential there, but he is still a 20-year-old starting pitcher. Aranda just got called up again for the Rays, I think, yesterday. His problem is he doesn't have a defensive home, but the bat's legit. And I wonder if the Rays need to trade him for him to get like a real chance. But I know Aranda's been one of Alex's guys, and I don't have an issue with him going out to get his guy. It feels relatively even, although I wonder if Smith-Shawver, maybe Alex could have sold him a little higher given some of the hype around him recently.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd rather have Smith-Shawver than Aranda. He's pitched solidly, not amazing. Walked a few too many guys. But he's only pitched 16 2/3 innings in the majors this year. And he's super young. I think he could be a steal at some point in the future if he retains his eligibility for a bit and then breaks out a little bit next year or at the end of this year. I like that side of the deal more.
Yeah, I think so too. But, I also wouldn't count out Aranda from, breaking out and being a good hitter. But yeah, let's move on to the next trade here. 3 EBO trades. EBO traded Jake's 2024 second, which goes to Andrew to complete the condition of some trade that I don't remember off the top of my head. 2 EBO for Von Grissom or Grissom. I still don't know how you pronounce it. I think it's Grissom.
I think it's just Grissom.
Oh, Grissom. Okay, Von Grissom. Why don't you go first here while I process this?
Yeah, this is another quick one. I mean, Eric gave up Von Grissom for free so that he doesn't have to give up, essentially, so that he's off the hook for owing a second rounder, I suppose. It'll be a late second. It'll probably be the 23rd, 24th, 22nd pick in the draft. So not a nothing pick, but not a high pick. Von Grissom's an okay guy for EBO to gamble on, but I don't really care too much about him.
Yeah,
and they've got a ton of second rounders.
Yeah, they did. I think it's a decent gamble for EBO. I think Grissom. So was someone going into the season many people were pretty high on because they thought the bat would play even if the defense wouldn't play. I think a lot of his issue is, or Arcia has really stood out. I mean, he's an all-star and Grissom's defense quite hasn't been there, so he hasn't really gotten an opportunity. I wonder if he needs to get traded out of Atlanta to get a real opportunity. But I think this is a pretty decent buy low on him. For a rebuilding team like EBO, I don't mind this. For a team like Eric, the sometimes what's unfortunate about winning is you kind of have to part with some of these players at their lowest point just because it's hard to hold on to them. And I know Eric had a couple of guys who, needed to be put in that MPI spot. So, Logan Allen was the other guy. He was trying to finagle into a spot. And especially with Eric having struggled a bit to start the season and being a little bit behind the 8 ball in the standings, any advantage he can get is a big one. So maybe Eric would have liked to have held on longer, but I get why he did it.
Yeah, agreed. Next one is the big one though from this week. EBO send Andres Jimenez, Jack Flaherty, Stephen Kwan, Lourdes Gurriel, Sidney Rafaela, and Blaze Alexander to Ruthvik for Bieber, Norby, Tavares, Orlando Arcia, Adbert Alzolay, Justin Crawford, Connor Prelip, and a third rounder. Not sure how that third rounder got in there, but that's 14 pieces and one of the largest deals we've ever seen.
Yeah, this is a lot to unpack. I still don't entirely understand my feelings about this deal. But I'll unpack some certain players here. I mean, I think they kind of ordered this and the way they announced it similar to how I value these players. I think Andres Jimenez is the biggest get for Ruthvik. Now, Jimenez has started the season off very slow. He has gotten a little better recently. He's up to 100 WRC plus now, but he had 140 WRC plus last year. He's still young. I think 25. I think he's a decent gamble for Ruthvik. Obviously a former Mets guy, so he has that connection there. I don't know if he is necessarily a super high upside guy that I'm super excited about. He did have a 353 BABIP last year, which I wonder if that boosted up the numbers a little bit. But I think he's a decent gamble for Ruthvik. I don't really like Jack Flaherty. Ruthvik's always loved Jack Flaherty, but I'm just kind of over Jack Flaherty at this point. He's just been maddeningly frustrating to watch this year. I guess this 4.27 ERA is a little better than I would have thought, but that walk rate is still really high. It's at a 4.66. The homer rate's at a 0.58, which is much lower than previous seasons, but I don't know if that's necessarily sustainable. Stephen Kwan, I don't think is a huge upside guy either. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is having a pretty decent year, and he's in the middle of that pretty stacked Diamondbacks lineup, but I'm also not super jazzed about him. I think he's fine. I don't think he's anything super special, but he does have 15 home runs. It's more than I would have expected from him. He should surpass his career high. He's still a low OBP guy, though. I don't really care for Rafaela. I don't really have any thoughts on Blaze Alexander. In terms of what EVO's getting, the stats on Shane Bieber, the underlying peripherals don't look great, but he still keeps performing. The K rate's gone up a little bit over the past few starts. It's not the type of player I want to hop on right now. Nothing looks like it's trending in the right direction for Shane Bieber. He's trending down, so I think it's a little bit of a weird get for EBO. He's also 28, so he's not necessarily someone who totally fits the rebuild, and I wonder if he's someone they eventually flip down a row, but it feels like Bieber is someone they've wanted for months. Leody Taveras, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Leody Taveras, you could, I think, reasonably argue the way he's been playing this year might be the best asset in this deal, and that is saying something. Taveras, or one of the top assets at least. I'm not going to go too far. Taveras has a 126 WRC plus this year, 10 homers, 9 steals, 340 OBP. That's all great. He's still only 24, which is shocking to me. But I wonder if he's finally starting to break out a little bit, and a lot of the underlying metrics seem to suggest that. So I'm a little curious to me that Ruthvik gave up on him. I think he's a nice get for EBO. I don't know why EBO wanted Orlando Arcia, but I guess they could probably flip him to another team as a sell high. Ditto with Adbert Alzolay. I think he's someone that just trade. I think Justin Crawford's an interesting prospect, or he was. I don't know how he's doing this year. But
He's having a good year.
he is okay, yeah. So he's definitely a nice toolsy guy. I think it's a good gamble. Connor Prelep, I don't know a ton about. Is he a Reds prospect or am I?
No, you're thinking of Connor Phillips.
Okay, yeah. Connor Prelep.
Phillips, I think, a Twins pitcher.
Yeah, you are right. He's in the complex. 22-year-old in complex. He literally doesn't matter. And then the third round pick. I think they're probably like LOL. Let's see what else we can add in here to make it a big trade. I'll just add in Yuki's third. Like fuck it. Overall, I think I prefer EVO side in this deal. I think I didn't even mention Connor Norby, who I think is getting a little bit underrated with all the other prospects coming up for the Orioles. I think Norby does not end up being with the Orioles long term. I think they deal him, but I still like the bat, and I think that plays. I think EBO wins this deal.
I'm going to take the other side. I think Ruthvik wins this deal. It's a weird one. I'm not going to go through all the players like you did, but I still like Jimenez. He's bouncing back. He's last year was definitely his ceiling. He's not going to be back to that, but I think he's a solid Willy Adames type for EBO now that they have Willy Adames already, but I guess they don't need two of them. I don't care about Flaherty. Kwan's decent. I've always been a big Lourdes Gurriel fan. The other two prospects, Raphael is kind of a standard pop-up guy from last year. A great pop-up season in 2022, but has been kind of average this year, falling back down to earth in the high minors. Blaze Alexander's not interesting. So I think, yeah, Norby and Crawford are the best prospects in the deal. They're both going to EBO, but Ruthvik gets a few good big league bats, which is what we've really wanted him to get for a while now. That's three guys that are going to go into his lineup right away. Taveras, I mean, yeah, he's maybe the best major leaguer in the deal too. I'm not 100% there yet, and I still think that we weren't wrong to say that he wasn't an asset a year or two ago, just because he's been added and dropped a few times in between then. But I think he's certainly breaking out to some extent. I don't care about Bieber. I think RC is just getting lucky. He's running a super high BABIP. He's going to crash down to earth any day. I don't care about Prelip. But overall, I think, Ruthvik got rid of Bieber and he got three major league bats. I think that's a win for him.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's getting these major league bats, right? I do think that I just wish there was a higher upside guy in here than, Andres Jimenez. And maybe Andres Jimenez is the high upside guy. But like Steven Kwan is a 95 WRC plus this year. I don't really think he's much of a fantasy asset. And I think Lourdes Gurriel is interesting, but is not a super high upside guy. Like I just wish there was somebody who's a little higher upside coming back their way.
I guess, but it's not like he's giving up a ton of super high upside guys either.
I mean, that's fair, but like I'd rather gamble on Leody Taveras than Kwan and Gurriel. I think Taveras and Jimenez is close. And like Crawford, Norby are like solid prospects, right? He gave up a closing option in Alzolay.
I guess I'm not convinced he's going to be like a long-term closer or anything.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I mean, if Ruthvik's trying to compete now, we're also kind of looking at the short term, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I say EBO wins from a value perspective. I also really like that. I do agree with the general notion that, hey, we've been telling Ruthvik go get bats and he went out and got three bats. Like, I think this will help his lineup quite a bit. Is the type of move he needed to make. I just wonder if the execution could have been a little better.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, last trade here was one you made. You sent Taylor Ward and Jorge Polanco to EBO for a first and Judd Fabian. Fabian was a guy I really tried to get in my recent deal with them for Paul Sewald. That didn't end up happening, so it's a solid move for you to get him there. First rounder, you'll be able to flip at some point, I'm sure. And you had a log jam, and you gave up two interesting bats, and EBO was the beneficiary of that, I'd say. I think it's a solid win-win.
Yeah, I like Ward and Polanco are two guys I targeted in the offseason, thinking that like, hey, I really like what they've done in past seasons. I thought their value was a little depressed. Polanco because of injury, Ward because of how the middle of his season went when he was banged up. And I was like, okay, like they can kind of fit in the back of my like outfield util mix. And, if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, I'll move on. And knowing that like Colton Cowser and Jordan Westburg are coming up. Now they're both up. And I was like, okay, it's decision time. In that time as well, I've gotten TJ Friedel, who I really like and who, I was interested in committing in. And I was like, all right, let's see what I could get for Ward and Polanco. I was hoping to get a little more. Like I was hoping to get the first for Ward and then for Polanco get like a second or two, but I think this is fine. I like it in the first. I think you're right. It gives me more trade flexibility. I now have that first and Eric's 2025 first. Judd Fabian was someone I had earlier in the year. Thought I could sneak him through for a couple of days when one of the times I demoted Tanner Bibby, I think, and EBO snapped him up immediately. I kind of am regretting that. I told them I needed something on top of Ward and Polanco, and interestingly, the name we both came to without the other knowing was Judd Fabian, and that made it pretty easy. So, yeah, I think this worked out nicely. I kind of cleared a log jam in the same way I cleared the log jam with Morton. I've gotten picks from those two deals, and I'll use those picks as part of the never-ending cycle I have of going and getting a bigger fish and then repeating the whole process. So I'm plenty content with how this played out. Although I wish maybe I would have gotten like one more second round pick.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I hadn't realized that Polanco has been injured and bad this year. But I like Ward. I think he's
3 separate times.
Man, yeah. So he's not a bad loss necessarily. I like Ward. I think he maybe doesn't have a spot on your team, but I think he's getting BABIP'd a little bit. He's hitting the ball fine, and I think he could help EBO down the stretch.
Breaking news,
or help another team.
Yeah, breaking news: the Reds just drafted right-handed pitcher Ty Floyd from LSU.
Interesting, another pitcher. I mean, I love the Louder pick earlier in the day. I can't say I know anything about Ty Floyd. Looks like he was a reach according to Pipeline. I don't know if he's I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, I'll be honest about him either, but we can do this while the draft's going on. So have one eye on the draft, one eye on the recording. But yeah, those are all the trades. Any more thoughts there, or are we ready to move on and discuss last week's matchups a little more in depth?
Yeah, let's briefly go through last week's matchups. We're not going to go through them all the way or anything like that. But just kind of talk about, read a list of winners, read a list of matchup MVPs that we discussed, and break down like little details about matchups where there are some. So you beat me 8-3-1. Your matchup MVP was Mookie Betts. Andrew won a narrow one over the Drury. His matchup MVP was Adolis Garcia. Jake blew out Alex and Zach. His matchup MVP for this week was, where did I put it?
Tommy Pham.
Lost the sheet. Yep, Tommy Pham. Yeah, first time matchup MVP, Tommy Pham. I'd love to go into depth on him real quick while I have the chance, because he had Fantastic week. Where did he go? There he is. Yeah, Tommy Pham, 13 for 25. That's a 400 or 556 on base percentage, excuse me. Uh, 6 runs, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBI, and a stolen base. 6 category contributor this week. He's been really solid for the Mets. He's got a 352 on base. He's like been one of their better hitters this year.
I think he's been hitting number 2 for them lately, and I think they've like moved Starling Marte like all the way down the line of him and Jeff McNeil as well, which is not something I would have predicted at the beginning of the season.
No, no, certainly me neither. Eric owned him for a few days in June, dropped him, then Jake picked him up June 18th and has not looked back. He left Sunday's game with an injury. Hopefully for the Mets, that's not too big of a deal. But yeah, he was Jake's best hitter last week.
Yeah, right groin soreness. He's gonna get some imaging done. All-Star break is well timed for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other 3 matchups, Eric won a tight one against Anthony, who really played better than he has all year. Shame he ran up into Eric. But Eric's matchup MVP was Ohtani. Ohtani single-handedly won this matchup for him in a lot of ways.
I'm curious what the percentage of matchups that Eric has won where Ohtani has been the MVP.
Let's see here. Ohtani this season has been matchup MVP how many times? Only twice, but 2 of the last 3 weeks. So that's 2 of his 7 wins.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he had
No,
he had
not only
Elias'
that,
matchup
he's
MVP
only won
last
it.
week.
He's only won it one other time. Only
I don't
20.
know. Eric's gotten a lot of good performances from a lot of players. Dylan Cease won it 4 times for him last year.
I guess there are probably times too where like Eric will, only use him as like a hitter, and you don't also get the pitching matchup in those weeks because he needs help with the hitting category. So if somebody else has a better hitting week, like it's going to overshadow Ohtani, even though Ohtani in real life did do both that week.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jesus Christ, I would not have for someone who has won the league MVP. That is not something I would have predicted or would have won it last year if not for Judge. It's not something I would have predicted that he only won 3 times.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised too. Because Adolis Garcia also won his 3rd this week, so they've each won the same number.
Yeah, it was also kind of just going off on a little bit of tangent here. I think that was Mookie Betts' first time winning matchup MVP while on my team, which also
Yeah, because
surprised.
he got one last year.
Week 6 in 2022. I don't know if he was on my team by then. He
I
might
think he
have.
was.
Okay, so second time maybe then.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the other 2 matchups, Connor beat Yuki very handily. Yuki drops to 6-6-1. Connor's matchup MVP was Luis Robert. I got a good week from him and Eloy both. And finally, Ruthvik won a very, very narrow, much needed win over EBO. His matchup MVP once again was Acuna.
Yeah. No, all great choices for matchup MVP. Anything else we want to say about these matchups? I mean, I generally don't think these were that much of a surprise. I think me beating you, like, I don't want to say save my season, but like I really needed to beat you after losing to Ruthvik and Daniel and Matt in back-to-back weeks. We're now both 9-4, and I have the head-to-head advantage over you, which puts me as a number 2 seed for now. We'll see what happens with me playing Jake this week. I don't think any of these other matchups really were surprising in their result. I guess huge one for Connor over Yuki. I think they both entered with the same record. and Potter is trying to separate himself there as and maybe being one of the favorites to snag the 6th seed. So, anything else you would like to add? Those are the only things that really stood out to me.
Yeah, so just two more quick things. One, Eric is now back in a playoff spot. He's at 7-6. He's got the 6th seed locked down, which would uh currently be a first round matchup between me and him. That would just be devastating.
Jesus.
If
Yeah.
I lost in the first round to a 6 seeded Eric, that would just, oh God, I would never get over that.
No, you would not.
And the second thing is Andrew is half a game out of a bye.
Yeah. He's won 5 straight. I let's see, he's losing right now. But the beauty of having the extra 3 days is he could still potentially make a comeback. Uh, but yeah, he is really hanging in here, and I don't know if we're giving him enough attention as to factoring into the race for the bye. I feel like we just kind of assumed like you, me, and Jake are going to combine to have the two buys, but I wonder if it's time we start seriously considering Andrew for one of those spots. I think what's working against him is I don't think the tiebreakers go in his favor. He has a loss to you, a loss to me.
He split with me, and
Okay,
I think he does hold the
split with
tiebreaker over me.
you. He lost to you 5-7, and then beat you 7-3-2. Okay, so he has the advantage over you. He does not have the advantage over me. He beat Jake the week of May 8th. And I think that's the only time he plays Jake this year.
Okay, so he's got the tiebreaker over me. He's got the tiebreaker over Jake.
The tiebreaker over Jake might be a little less relevant because he's 3 games back of Jake right now. But I currently have the tiebreaker over him. We play later in the season, and I beat him 8-3-1 the first time around. And he does not have the tiebreaker over Eric currently, but he plays Eric again in a couple of weeks, so that could change. He lost to Eric 5-7 the first time around. And while we're at it, he does not have the tiebreaker over Connor currently. He plays Connor after this matchup against Ruthvik.
He's got a chance at the bye here, and he didn't really play that well this past week. Not necessarily. I would have beaten him. Let's look here. I would have beaten him 9-1-2, I think, or if I'm reading this right, no, 8-2-2. I would have beaten him this past week. So I wish I had played him last week instead of you. But that being said, he's set himself up really nicely, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah,
he's currently losing to Ruthvik, by the way.
He has to pull out this win over Ruthvik to stay the course, I think, with the rest of the teams. And then he has an interesting 4-game stretch coming up afterwards. Connor, Eric, Yuki, and then me. His last 3 weeks are a lot easier. It's Anthony, Ruthvik, and Alex and Zach. So if he can get through if he could beat Ruthvik this week and then go 3-1 in that tough 4-week stretch he has, I think there might be a shot for a bye there, but we'll have to see how that plays out. But definitely a team to keep our eye on. I think we have not been giving him the attention he deserves. With respect to getting a bye. I think he's probably a playoff team, though. I have a hard time imagining a scenario where he's not a playoff team.
I think you're probably right, and that's unless he really falters in this tough stretch of his season. But I think, he's looking like a playoff team.
I'd also say, too, if he loses to Ruthvik this week, Ruthvik's only a game behind him suddenly, so that could and Ruthvik's currently sitting outside the playoffs. And then Yuki this week is losing to Anthony, but if Yuki were to win and Ruthvik were to win, they'd both only be a game back of Andrew, and Andrew would start to slip away from that bye discussion and more towards them. Anything else on this front, or are we ready for our segment?
Yeah, so this segment, in honor of my 25th birthday, And in honor of Effectively Wild doing a very similar thing recently, we're going to steal that idea and do a under 25 draft. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We got this off week. It's always fun when we do a draft on the podcast. At least I think it is. I don't know what the listeners think. But basically, what we're going to do, taking players under 25, players younger than I am, essentially, is the rule of thumb here. And we're drafting teams each. We're doing a Gallardo roster, so 20 players. Replacing the relief pitcher requirement with another bench spot just because we don't really want to draft a reliever. The only reliever worth drafting maybe is Brusdar Graterol, and he's a free agent in our league. So we've dropped that reliever requirement, but we are doing full roster outside of that, and it's going to be great. Looking forward to it. Any thoughts on the concept or any questions, concerns?
You forgot Andres Munoz for relievers, but yeah, that's the first one that comes to name. And more breaking news: the Reds draft something called a Sam Stafora, a high school outfielder. So
from New York, that's kind of fun.
From New York. Yeah, from Mohegan Lake, New York.
Mohegan Lake, New York. That sounds upstate. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. Fun indeed. He is committed to Clemson, so we'll see how that works out for you all. But yeah, let's get started. How are we determining who goes first?
Yeah, so we're gonna do a snake draft. Is there a way to like do a random number generator in Slack or something like that?
I'll just run a random number generator right now.
Yeah, we can do random.org. That's usually easier.
Do you want the number? Yeah, let's just do it that way. Do you want the number 1 or 2?
I'll be 1, I guess.
All right, it came up as 2, so I'll pick first.
All right,
and we'll snake it.
Cool, we'll snake it. And one final stipulation is that these have to be players that have debuted already. So no Jackson Holiday, no guys like that. So only players who have debuted and are younger than I am.
I forget, are we doing this from a fantasy perspective or a real life perspective?
Let's do fantasy.
Okay. That makes my decision easier. With the first overall pick, I'm going with my boy Fernando Tatis Jr. He's been a monster since coming back. He is my boy. Like power, speed, just a great combination of all of that. And I think from a fantasy perspective, those are skills I really want to bank on. So give me him as one of my outfielders for the next decade.
Interesting. All right. That is not exactly where I thought you'd go with that. I'm going to take my guy Juan Soto. Had a tough start to the season, but he's been better than ever. He's bouncing back. He's looking like his old self. Got the on-base percentage over 400. I would love to have that for the next decade, and I'm glad that I do. So Juan Soto is my first pick in the under 25 draft. And this next pick is a little more difficult here. I'm looking through a couple names. I am going to take Corbin Carroll.
Ooh.
Power speed threat. A little bit off board, but I love to get a little speed, a little more power, get some doubles in there. I think he is going to be a fantasy beast for the next very long time.
I don't even know if I necessarily call that off board. Using Clegg's rankings, he is the next best player, even ahead of Soto. I think it's a good power speed combination. So I think that's a good call.
Right.
I'm gonna go a little off board.
Ooh.
For a reason with my next pick. And I'm gonna go with Vlad Jr. And the reason I go with Vlad Jr. is because the drop off at 25 or younger first baseman who have debuted is pretty significant.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess it's like Tristan Casas for me then.
yeah, so it's like Casas. And I think Vlad is just clearly better. And I still think Vlad's probably like a top 10 dynasty asset as a whole. I don't think it's like a huge reach or anything, but from a position flexibility, or not flexibility because he's only first base eligible, but from a positional standpoint, I think he makes the most sense. This next pick is a little more difficult. Um, I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with J Rod here, and
Okay.
it was between him and another guy, and I know J Rod hasn't been as good this season. He's had a little bit of the sophomore slump, but he's still 22. He's still an elite player, elite asset. The power speed's still there. I think he's getting a little bit unlucky this year. And I think I feel pretty confident about him over the next decade. So give me J Rod.
Cool. I am going to, with my next pick, take the guy. Um, so Corbin Carroll is number one in player rater among players under 25. I'm going to take the second guy in the player rater among players under 25. That's Wander Franco.
Okay, good
Uh,
call.
yeah, having a great season. Still maybe a little better real life player than fantasy player. Although being top 10 in the player rater, I guess you can't even say that. He's hitting a lot of doubles. He's scoring a lot of runs. 28 stolen bases. I'm kind of building a speed team here, accidentally. Uh,
A lot of
that's
these
not
young guys are speed guys. I mean, I guess like
that's
Soto, not so, Vlad, not so, but a lot of these young guys are like speedier guys.
that's very true. And I'm going to follow in your footsteps here. You took Vlad Jr. because there's a big drop off at his position. I'm going to take another player for the same reason, and that is Spencer Strider. I think
Oh, I was hoping I could
there's
get
a
on my next pick. I almost took him because of the scarcity. Uh,
there's a lot of pitcher scarcity here,
yeah,
and I want an ace.
yeah, that's a really good call. That's I think by far the best pitcher on the board. Um, but that's okay. I'm uh with my next pick. It is me now, right?
It is you. You got two.
Okay. I'm gonna steal this guy from you.
Oh, I know who it is.
He is like Jesus Christ. He's been so electric since debuting. It's got to be Ellie De La Cruz, and
Yeah, I almost took him over Wander. I couldn't quite do
I.
it.
So here's the thing. I think there's more risk in the profile than Wander has, but the upside with Ellie De La Cruz is the number one overall player, and there's a very small handful of players you can say that about. And I think I mean, what did he do yesterday? He stole second, stole third, and then stole home. Like he's just he hitting the ball hard too. He's just on another level, and he is the type of guy I'd really want to have. So give me Ellie De La Cruz. I think that's an easy one. Um, this next one's a little tricky. Um, I think there's one more kind of topish tier. My internet will ever load. Okay, I'm gonna go in a little bit of an upset pick here. But I'm gonna go with Gunnar Henderson.
Oh, that was my next pick.
And the reason why I'm going with Gunner, so I was debating between Gunner and someone who I'm curious if you end up taking with your next pick. The reason I took Gunner is because Gunner's been getting on base. Now, I don't think Gunner has the Ellie De La Cruz upside where he's going to be like a top like 5-10 player. I think Gunner's probably going to settle more into that like top 50-ish player range, and I think that's perfectly fine. Or top 50-ish dynasty asset. But I think Gunner has shown the plate skills that you need to succeed. I don't know if the speed's fully going to come in terms of him stealing bases. He's a fast player, but I don't ever get the sense that he's going to be like Ellie and steal second, third, and home. He does have some pop in the bat. But I think he's just a very solid addition to play third base on this team. So, or shortstop, wherever Ellie doesn't play, they can duke it out.
Yeah, no, certainly not a bad pick.
Yeah.
Uh, it's it's getting tricky out here. I'm running out of great picks.
I think there's
Uh,
one high tier name I'm interested to see if you take.
Interesting. I don't see any high tier name. I see one high tier name actually, and I'm not. I think I know who you're thinking of. I'm not quite sure I want to take him. I'm gonna take Yuri Perez first, though. Build up that rotation.
Fucking hell, he was gonna be my next pick.
Yeah, he's
Great pick.
20 years old. He's pitching. Uh, I mean, there are a lot of great rookies in the NL this year, and he's certainly one of them. Uh, it's that stretch he had, scoreless stretch he had last month. And, young rotation is what wins in this league, and I am happy to take him here. Looking at the rest of my team, though, I I know the name you're thinking of, and I think I want to snipe you on him, but also you don't have a ton of space for him right now. Um, yeah, and I think there's too much of a drop off. It's Bobby Witt Jr., right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take him. I'll slide him at third base. I'm building my team more around speed than I'm comfortable with. But yeah, that's okay. He's doesn't get on base a ton, but you know who do my other three guys in my lineup.
No, that's very fair. Let's see. All right, that's a good pick. My concern with him is he's just not getting on base a ton. Like he has some of the good fantasy juice, but he's not getting on base, and that's why I'm like, I don't want to say it's like Adolis Garcia, and again, like Adolis Garcia has been pretty good, but like I just like that's not the type of player I like to gamble on, or the plate skills just quite aren't there. Um, but all right, I am going to this is going to be fun. I'm going to take a couple hunters with my next two picks here. I'm going to go Hunter Brown and Hunter Green. I
Okay.
think two very solid starters who I think the upside's very high. They flashed some stuff so far in the majors, and I think there's room for them to develop. Not quite as good of a pair as Strider and Perez, but I'm pretty happy with both of them.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I missed Hunter Brown completely uh when I was
Yeah,
looking for.
he's having a nice year.
Yeah, he really is. He's 24. He really is having a nice year. Got blown up a bit his last two starts. So that's got his ERA up above 4, but yeah, we'll see how he does the rest of the year. I am going to. There haven't been any reaches yet. At this point, with Hunter Green going, the top 4, 5, 6, the top 11 names on my board have been taken, and no one below 11 has been taken. The next name on my board is Leody Taveras, so I guess I'll take him.
Wow. Okay. Talk about that pick.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he's fast. He's hitting the ball a lot harder this year than he has before. The power is starting to develop. He's getting some doubles. I don't know. It feels a little bold, and I don't know. I think this is kind of a reach, but I'm kind of buying into it.
That's fair. I mean, I kind of buy into the breakout as well. And as somebody who's a big Leote hater, that's saying a lot. But boy, I think there are a lot better names here that I would have taken over him. That's bold.
Yeah. And here's a bold thing too. How about Andrew Abbott for my number 3 starter?
Oh, okay, that's bold. That might be even bolder. All
I'm
right, talk
I
about
he's
why Abbott here over some of the insanely talented pitchers that are still on the board.
I don't know. I mean, like who are the next most talented pitchers out here? Tanner Bibby. I like Tanner Bibby, but I like Abbott better. Uh,
Gavin Williams, Grayson Rodriguez, Bryce Miller.
yeah, I mean, I like these guys. But I don't know. Abbott's pitched really well. Basically every start so far in the majors. He's shown it more in the majors than any of these other guys have, especially Grayson Rodriguez. Uh, I don't know. I like the mustache. I like the Spencer Strider comparisons. Uh, he's and he's on the Reds, you know.
Interesting. Well, give me Grayson Rodriguez. Like 10 up and down starts aren't going to change my opinion of him. He's dominated since going back to AAA. I suspect he's going to be back up soon. And I think this I can't believe he went after Abbott. But I'm really high on Grayson. So give me Grayson. And then for the same reason that I took Vlad Jr., give me, yeah, let's do it. Give me Francisco Alvarez. I think the catcher drop off is pretty steep. And while I think there's still some risks with Alvarez, I think he is probably in a tier of his own at the catcher position at the top here. So I really like.
Interesting. Yeah, I had him as the top catcher too. He was probably going to be in my next set of picks. I don't think the drop is terribly big, but I think there's certainly a reasonable drop there. Let's look back at my board. There aren't a ton of second basemen out there, and Matt McLean's second base eligible at the moment. Let's take him. Back-to-back Reds. He hits the ball well. He's slugging .512, which I was not expecting either. And the Reds started winning as soon as he got called up, and he gets on base. I like having a guy like that near the top of the lineup.
It's a great pick. Almost took him, but position scarcity kind of won it out for me with Francisco Alvarez. But that's a great pick. Alvarez.
Why not Tanner Bibby? He's got an 0.92 ERA. No, that's not true. Why did it say? Oh no, his player rating number is 0.92. He's got a 3.34 ERA. Striking out more than a batter per inning. He's not pitching 6 innings most starts just yet, but he's still super young. I think he's going to be a solid pitcher in that Cleveland rotation for a little while. And I like having more starting. I like getting my fourth starting pitcher before you get your fourth starting pitcher.
That's fine. I'm gonna take this name. I'm surprised he slipped. I'm gonna read off his June slash line. 71 at bats, 338, 427, 549. Good for a 976 OPS. Do you know who that is?
I'm not sure I do know who that is. No.
It's Jordan Walker.
Yeah, he was gonna be my next pick.
Yeah, he has come back up and played very well after getting demoted. And I feel like he's flying a little under the radar now. But he's a guy who I think kind of like Grayson, right? They came up the first time, they had their moments, they weren't fantastic, they got sent down. And in Walker's case, he's been able to come back up and hit very well. So I am all in on the Walker train. I think this is a pretty solid buy low opportunity on him. The next pick is a little tougher. There's one guy I want to search up quickly. Give me. Is this a reach though?
I think we're far enough into the draft that there aren't really that many reaches anymore.
Unless
I took like I don't know, Joey Weimer right now.
That's fair. I'm gonna take Reed Detmers.
Ooh.
What I like about Reed Detmers is he just turned 24 yesterday, so happy birthday, Reed Detmers. Whereas some of these other pitcher names here who are at a similar age have not been as established as him in the majors. He's got a 4.31 ERA, but the FIP, xERA, xFIP are all a little lower than that. What I really like is the strikeout rates jumped a bunch this year. It was at 8.51 last year in the majors. It is now sitting at 11.24, while the walk rate stayed the same. So I think there's a lot of room for more development here. And he's already showed it in the majors. I think at worst he's a solid kind of mid-rotation fantasy arm here. But Demers is a guy I really like. So I like that pick. I like him.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not as high in Detmers as you are, but I don't think it's a bad pick by any stretch.
Yeah.
Um, Here's a pick that Tigers fans will like. I'm going to take Riley Green. He's having a really solid year. Great on base percentage. I believe it's above 360, 373 actually.
Oh
Uh,
damn.
yeah, no, he's scoring runs. The Tigers lineup around him isn't good enough that he's going to get a ton of uh, runs and RBIs just yet. And he's not hitting quite for a ton of power, but he's hitting the ball hard and he's getting on base. I think he's a good pick.
419
Um,
Babbitt.
yeah, so that's yeah, not great, but hey. And my next pick, I'm not sure if this is an off-board pick or what. He is an upside pick. I'm taking O'Neal Cruz out
Ooh,
for the
okay.
year.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, out for the year, but I really loved what I was seeing from him in the 3 weeks. He was healthy. He could be the next Ellie De La Cruz, some are saying.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I feel like it's weird to say because he debuted first, but I almost feel like he's like Ellie De La Cruz light now. Like I feel like Ellie has just jumped above him.
He
Um,
really has, and it happened very suddenly.
yeah, and Ellie's also 3 years younger than him. I cannot believe Ellie's still 21. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Um, but man, good for them. All right, I got two picks to make. And I am going to I'm going to round it out with a couple Orioles here.
Hmm.
Um, Colton Cowser
Yeah.
uh, is going to fill my util spot. I really like the on base skills. Um, I think I think he could end up when it's all said and done of like the Orioles hitters who are up right now that are like these like young guys, young prospects be the most consistent of them all. I've seen a lot of comps to Brandon Nimmo, and I think that's a very good comp. If he's like a healthy, actually healthy version of Brandon Nimmo with like a little bit more power for the next like 8, 10 years, I'd be very happy with him. Um, I know Orioles fans are excited about him. We have not lost since the Orioles have promoted him. And I'm glad we recorded it this week and not last week because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to draft him. But I am a big Colton Cowser guy and I'm very happy to draft him. This next guy I'm going to draft, I'm going to cheat slightly because on ESPN he's not eligible at second base, but he's been playing mostly second base. Will be eligible there, and on other sites he's already eligible there. It's Jordan Westberg.
Mm.
I really think he's just going to be a pretty solid, middle infielder. I don't think he has the top end upside that the rest of my infield has. Thinking like Ellie, Gunner, Vlad. I mean, that's a fucking great infield. But I think he's going to be a very solid player for the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm, in terms of second base options, maybe there's a couple higher upside guys here. But I'm pretty, and honestly, maybe not for second base, higher upside guys. As some of these guys are playing more shortstop, I'm thinking more like the Anthony Volpes in the world, the Royce Lewises. But um, I really like what Westbrook brings to the table, and I'm pretty happy with him rounding out my infield.
Yeah, no, great choice there. I am going to uh and this is tough. I'm not really sure where to go next.
There's a really interesting glaring name that's still sitting out on my board, and I'm curious to see if you pick up on him on some point.
I think he may be one of the guys I take in this round. I'm not sure. I am going to take. I think I'm going to take two guys who have had a really hot couple weeks here. I'll start with the pitcher here. This is a little bit off board. Here, there are actually two pitchers on my board above him. But the name, I don't know. He's had a great month. It's Brian Bayo. I wasn't really a believer in him before the season, but he just had an absolutely dominant June. 2.14 ERA, and then followed that up with 2 7 innings, 2 earned run starts. Or I guess one 7 innings, 2 earned run start. On the 5th. Really, it was just a rough April, and ever since then, he's been dominant. I like him a lot right now. And then
I
I'm
almost took him. That's a good pick.
Yeah, and then I'm going to take the guy who I think is the glaring name on your board. It's Anthony Volpe, who has just had a tremendous last 2 weeks.
That's
I'm
not
not.
the glaring name on the board. Wow. But go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess before he had 3 straight hitless games, he tore up the Cardinals and Orioles and the A's. Really, yeah, the last 2 weeks of June and first week of July, he was one of the best hitters in baseball. He was hitting a homer basically every other day for me, and then he homered again today. Also, um, the on-base percentage is creeping up closer to 300. It had been down in like the 260s, 270s for a while. He's getting up there. He's got some power, got the speed. I think he's a solid pick here.
Interesting. Okay. That's not who I thought you were gonna. It makes sense that you picked him because he's your boy, but that was not the name I had in mind. Um, I don't even know if I'm gonna go with the name I had in mind here. I'm gonna pick a couple pitchers here. I'm gonna go with Gavin Williams to start out with, and then I'm gonna go with hmm. Now hold on. Before I do that second name, he's just clearly the top name off my board. I don't know if I can pass up this guy. Now you're kind of falling into the problem where it's like constructing a team versus just getting the best talent. I can't. I'm just not a fan of his. I've just never been on his hype train. So I'm going to draft Bryce Miller as the other one. I really like what Bryce Miller and Gavin Williams have shown so far in their limited stints in the majors. Bryce Miller was a guy I was really in on in the offseason, traded him to Alex in the Dynasty League, and then I've kind of regretted that. I think there's some real room for more development here. I think he's already a very solid arm. He only has room to get better. Seattle has a good track record now of developing arms, and I feel really confident about him moving forward. And I think Gavin Williams is the best pitcher in that Cleveland system. And I think you could argue, and I don't know if this is true, but I think you could argue that Gavin Williams, from a stuff perspective and everything now, might just be better than Shane Bieber.
I'm not sure I disagree.
Yeah, I think Bieber's on the downtrend. I think Williams is really on the upswing. The risk with Williams is that he hasn't pitched as many games in the majors, but I like what I've seen so far. And given that 3 of the 4 names I've picked have been pretty established in the major leagues right now, I feel pretty confident in picking both of those guys, and very happy with this top 6 of a rotation that I have.
Cool. I am going to take a guy who's a little further down my board, but I need an outfielder, and this guy's got a bright red StatCast page. It's Christopher Morel. I'm not completely sure I buy it, and I don't think he was, and I'm not even sure he was on your board at all.
No,
but like,
no,
I could have waited on him, but like, look at this StatCast page. He's phenomenal. He's hitting the ball so hard, and he was leading AAA in homers before he got called up, and has not stopped in the majors. It's fun to have a guy who's slugging 572 on your team.
That's so gross. That's,
Uh, I
I
don't
think
know.
I
I
have to
like,
take a shower after hearing that. That's just so gross.
yeah, no, I'm not like fully on board the hype train, but I think, it's not like he's getting lucky. He's barreling the ball in the 93rd percentile and he's 24. Um, and then with my next pick here, looking through a few other guys, I want to take a pitcher, but I'm not sure there's a pitcher I like enough to take. Let's go. No, let's go Bobby Miller. Sure. Starting
Oh,
pitcher. Yeah, had a great start to his season. Struggled his last few starts. Um, but those were against the Astros. A bad start against the Astros is making his line overall look a lot worse than otherwise. He's 24. The Dodgers seem to find all these pitchers out of somewhere. I'm gonna go with Bobby Miller.
that's a great pick. I really wanted him. He was going to be my next pick. I will. At this point, this next player has just been around too long, and I don't love him, but I'm going to take him. It's Michael Harris.
Yeah, I've thought about him a little bit.
I think he's a better pick than Christopher Morel. Uh, I don't love the plate skills. He has been very hot in June. And unfortunately, he strikes me as a guy who's going to kind of be more up and down with slumps and again really hot. He's just not the type of player I like to invest in. But as like my bench outfielder here this late, given somebody other talent on the board, yeah, this is a gamble I will happily take, and he'd be the guy that I'd plug in when he's like really hot, but not really at any other time. Do get to make another pick. I'm gonna snipe a first baseman here because I'm feeling really good about
No.
how Tristan Casas has been doing this year.
I was really thought I could wait until this round for him.
Yeah, I figured you needed him, and also like he's been really hot in June. I think things are starting to look better for him. He had a 286 average in June after 257 in May. He's really being held down by like a dreadful April when he had a 133 average. He's been pretty fine since then. And I think he's a pretty solid gamble here as a bench bat. And who knows, maybe I'll trade him to you in this two-team league we're building here.
I
Um,
might trade for him.
I think it'd be interesting if we put these teams up against each other and see how they went as an aside. But
Okay, I'm going to let's see here. Take a couple bats. Let's go with a guy. He's another one of my guys. I drafted him in the first round last year, Zach Neto. He was really coming into his own, hitting the ball really well before he got hurt. I'm definitely bummed that had happened. He's got hits the ball to all fields. Uh, could be a shortstop of the future for the Angels. I like him a lot. He's got good plate discipline as well. And he's still only 22, and the first player to debut from his draft class. Um, so yeah, Zach Neto. And I'm going to take my first baseman here. And it's going to be a guy who doesn't play a lot of first base, but he is first base eligible in fantasy. It's Isaac Paredes.
good pick.
He's really the only guy left I could take, and I'm worried that you'd snipe him again next round, and then I'd be really screwed. I guess I'd have to take Torque in that case.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought about Paredes, so
Yeah,
yeah.
Paredes. He's I'm looking at his Statcast page. It is pretty blue, but the plate discipline numbers are solid, and he's somehow running a 369 on base despite not even being BABIP fueled. He's got a low BABIP. He's hitting the ball really well this year. Just kind of looking at his spray chart, he's just pulling everything and it's going over the fence. Uh, yeah, I think he's fine. I don't like him a ton, but I would trade for him in this league.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know if he's a guy I'm like super excited about, but I think he's a plenty solid asset. All right, so that leads to me. I am going to take two pitchers. One is Emmett Sheehan from the Dodgers, guy I recently traded away to get Nolan Arenado in the Dynasty League. Sheehan's really spiked up. Another one of those, hey, Dodgers, have interesting arms who they are able to develop. I like what he's done so far in the majors. I think he's a good gamble kind of at the back of my rotation. Um, the next guy is going to be Andres Munoz. I think he's really the only reliever worth taking. I think he has a really bright future ahead of him. Maybe I could have gotten another starting pitcher here, but and not that we really care about relievers necessarily. We made it just like pitcher spots as a whole. But I do think that drop off makes me want to take him.
All right. I'll take another pitcher. I'll take Logan Allen. I think he's the best pitcher left. He's got a solid ERA, solid FIP, walks a few too many guys, I think, but I like the stuff that he has. And with that Cleveland rotation, I guess that gives me two Cleveland starting pitchers, and you've also got one here. So Logan Allen. And that just leaves the only pick left for me. I've got to take a catcher. And looking at who's left, I guess, unless I'm missing someone, it's Alejandro Kirk, Henry Davis, Gabriel Moreno, Bo Naylor, Keibert Ruiz, and those are in order my board for catcher, but I'm not sure I love any of them. Kirk's had a rough year. Let me check Kirk's StatCast page here, and I'll make a decision. Not so good. Yeah, no, you were definitely right to take Francisco Alvarez. The drop-off's worse than I thought it was. Gabriel Moreno, I guess, of those five is having the best season right now. Let's go Kirk. I have the most faith in him. He's shown the most at the big league level. Which means you have one final pick, and then we're done.
Yeah. If I'm looking from a pure roster construction standpoint, assuming Jordan Walker loses third base eligibility and Tatis loses shortstop eligibility, like I'm covered with outfielders. I do have some infielders with multi-position eligibility, but no real backup infielder. So I'm going to take a backup infielder, and I believe, or a backup non-first baseman because I sniped your first baseman. I believe the best remaining. There are a couple of interesting infielders left on the board. But I'm going to go with Brady Beatty. He has not hit that wall in the majors. I like what he's done in the minors. I still think there's some upside for him. It's still going to be a pretty stacked top of that Mets lineup for the next few years with Lindor and Alonso and Nimmo, and Alvarez. And I think he's a pretty solid gamble, with the last pick of the draft to see if he could become something. So give me Brady Beatty.
All right. Yeah, not a bad upside pick here. So looking at our teams, I think it's maybe fair to say that you've got the better lineup and I've got the better rotation.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although I'd say you have the better top of the rotation. I think when we're looking like 3 through however many starters we drafted after that, I think it's closer. I think that your comparative difference comes from having Strider and Perez at the top. I think that's just a really hard combo to beat.
That's fair. I also think I like the top of my lineup better than yours with Soto and Carroll as my top two.
That's also fair. I do think I think you can make an argument about that, but I think you're splitting hairs between those two and then like Tatis and J Rod. I do think I have more depth in the lineup though, than you do. Uh,
Probably fair. But yeah, what effectively Wild did was they put it to a fan vote, who had a better team all around, and maybe that's what we can do too. I can submit a poll in the comments of this video, and we'll see how many. First and foremost, we'll see how many votes we get. That'll be an interesting answer. But uh, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see which of our teams the listeners think is better.
yeah, I think you should definitely do that. I'd certainly be curious to see who the people think you know whose team they think is better, because after all, we are a podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. So the M-SABR Dynasty League should weigh in. But yeah, anything else you would like to discuss while we are on here?
No, I think that's everything. Fun week this week. We go back to regular season, uh, regular season ball in our next episode, recapping the week 14 matchup, the long week, the All-Star week. Maybe we'll do some trade deadline previewing in there too. But I
Yep.
think this was a fun one. And I don't know if I speak for you, but I think doing more offbeat drafts is a fun thing for this league. Maybe next week we'll do an over 35.
Oh God, that would be a lot of fun. I know that is something you and I have discussed, is potentially doing some more unique drafts this offseason. So if anybody has ideas for different drafts, let us know. I know Cam and I have a lot of fun putting those drafts together and then discussing our reasoning on air. We've done a couple of fun ones over the years, but we're looking to expand. And then one more logistical note, since you all care so much about our pick'em, I did put some pick'ems in the chat at the beginning of the week. Cam did not do a pick'em since he was on vacation. So we are not going to count this week as a pick'em week. We'll not count towards the standings, but I will track how my picks did compared to the actual results. So Cam gets to maintain his lead for yet another week.
Love to see it.
Yep. Love to see it indeed. And all right. Well, I'll see you next week, Cam, and I can't wait to hear what's coming next on this podcast.
All right. See you then.
Yeah.
Eve on my 25th birthday, you come knocking at my door at night. I tried a hole in my head, a hole in my pocket. Nothing makes me feel as high as the silhouette of your body in the dim of the hallway light. You move like nothing happened prepared for me. I move right, nothing happened prepared for me. Nobody knows you're still turning me on, holding heavy hands with heavy hearts. The craze on the building.
Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. No, maybe not. Okay, it passed.